After a half-century of success, Priefert has become a trusted power player in the global livestock industry.
So the veterinary would say, I'm putting this head gate in your truck. You go home and you put that up, or I'm not coming back out there to work cattle.
How one young farmer inventor was able to solve a complex challenge with a straightforward idea that still stands the test of time. And how his genius was passed down to next generations, leading to a revolutionary line of ranch and rodeo equipment with a long-standing tradition of integrity and reliability. This is the Rural Americans. The 1920s roared in with a period of pronounced prosperity in the United States. It was an era marked by gin-fueled flappers who defiantly danced the Charleston while flouting restrictions in the face of prohibition, and a time when mass consumerism launched a dynamic purchase-driven economy. As investors flocked to a rising stock market, inventors struggled to keep up with the demand for new cutting-edge products. In 1923, the same year the first three-position traffic signal was patented, Marvin Priefert was born in the southern hills of Nebraska on a rented horse and wheat farm in Thayer County.
Belvedere, Nebraska, it's right on the Kansas line, south central Nebraska. That's where the Prieferts more or less homesteaded and came from Germany in the 1870s. People don't understand today how hard those people worked, those immigrants. They just don't understand. They would follow that plow all day long. They might change horses, but they would follow that plow all day long. People today, we don't know what work is. Our dad and his brothers worked themselves to death in the snow and the ice and the mud.
Marvin Priefert was unduly curious about the world around him and demonstrated his genius mind straight out of the gate as a child. Not only was he equipped with an intrinsic ability to perceive obstacles on the farm in need of solutions, he was also remarkably skilled in finding solutions that could be improved even further.
School was easy for Dad, very intelligent. I call him a mechanical genius from the time he was a little kid, just making things. How did they work? That was his first love, machinery. No matter how many gears, sprockets, chains, he could visualize in his head how it was supposed to work. Only God sees the end from the beginning, but I say Dad could see the finished product from the start.
In 1936, when Marvin was just 13 years old, tragedy struck the Priefert family twice. First, the devastating and unexpected loss of his father left the household with fears of financial ruin. And not long after, his oldest brother broke his back while collecting firewood. Marvin was expeditiously forced into the adult role of leading operations on the 160-acre farm and putting food on the table for his four siblings and mother at a time when the Great Depression was gripping the country.
They were so poor that he would trap skunks for the pelts to buy 22 shells to shoot the rabbits to eat. So I always remembered that you count your blessings, and even though back then they didn't even know that they were poor. That's just what you had to do to get along and survive.
They didn't have money, so they didn't spend money. They worked. You go to the junkyard and you pull out pieces and you make it into machinery that'll work. If you want to build a house, you tear down a house and use the lumber and the nails.
Marvin and the Priefert family pulled together through the meager years, finding a way to keep the farm profitable. And although his workday never saw a definitive beginning and end, he still managed to find time to research, invent, and breathe life into his original ideas.
As a kid, Dad would build model plows, motorboats. He built an entire German homestead farm, windmill, barns, slings, hay wagons on a 4x8 table. And teacher took it to the state fair. He won first place 3 years in a row with his model farm.
In 1942, in his late teens, Marvin answered the call to serve in the United States Navy in World War II. a battle against the very country that his family immigrated from just one generation prior. His ingenuity was quickly recognized by his superiors, opening the door to specialized training that led to a life-changing encounter with the love of his life.
The Navy sent Dad to diesel schooling at Iowa State in Ames, Iowa, and that's how he met Mom. This is Mom and Dad when they got married. Dad was in the Navy. The war was over on the 15th of August, 45. They got married on the 17th.
The newlyweds decided to lay the foundation for their new home on the same acreage where Marvin grew up, where his siblings still struggled to make a living. But he was now armed with an arsenal of knowledge on heavy equipment mechanics and brimming with new ideas for inventions that could increase productivity on the farm.
Told his brothers, can't get any broker than this.
Necessity was truly the mother of invention.
Yes, very much. He would get inside of combines and study how they work. Dad wasn't an early riser. Now he worked till 10 and 12 o'clock at night, but he liked to sleep in the morning. He'd sit there at the breakfast table and drink coffee and smoke cigarettes, and that's where he'd do his thinking and his inventing. In the wintertime, when you don't do much farming, Dad would go to Columbus, Nebraska, which is quite an industry town, farm machinery manufacturing. Spend 2 weeks at a time just touring little factories, learning a little bit about manufacturing.
Coming from a rented farm in the Depression area to World War II and seeing how magnificent machinery could be, he comes home later, still to a rented farm, saying, you know what, we got to get bigger. You know, we got to get rid of the horses, get into some horsepower with some tractors, build my own plows. But he didn't have the money to buy an iron worker. And an iron worker is just basically a machine that does several different operations. It's got a flywheel in it. You hit a switch in the bottom of it and you cut and nip metal, cut it, bend it, do all the different things that you need to do with it. So he didn't have the money to buy an iron worker. He went in another man's junkyard in Nebraska and got the flywheel and gearbox out of a steel-wheeled tractor, got the gearbox and flywheel out and made his own iron worker so he could build his plows and his own stuff. So he did the same thing with the machine you see right here, the green machine. We call this the John Deere punch press because this was a John Deere hay baler before it was a punch press. So a punch press is a high-efficient manufacturer's machine to where you have a slide and you make a die and you slide the die in on top of the slide and a man feeds into the die. So you change the die and it comes out with a different part. And this was back in the late 60s on the farm shop, and he needed his own punch press, so he built his own. Same thing goes for the pipe bender that you see here. He needed a pipe bender that was used, and the pipe bender bent the yokes and cut some rod, and he needed a pipe bender. So he saw an International Harvester rear end out of a hay baler. You see the symbol right there.
Have you heard from John Deere or an International Harvester about how they feel about this?
No, not at all. A lot of people don't realize my grandfather was one of the first known production farmers because he was turning 80 acres a day on the farming side because he had the horsepower with the D7, had the 2 6-bottom plows, but at the same time, the tractor didn't have hydraulics. So in his mind, he's like, okay, how do I pick up and raise the blade on the plow? So he built and patented his own design to where when he pulled a rope, a mechanical lever would actually lift the plows up and down.
So he invented a square bale loader. Him and his brothers built a few of those and sold them, got a patent on it. And then he took the idea to another manufacturer in northern Kansas. They built a lot of them.
Marvin's inventions not only exponentially increased the number of acres that he and his brothers could plow in a day, his impressive patents also garnered the attention of esteemed farming publications, including nationally circulated Reader's Digest. As Marvin's family farm grew and prospered, so did his household. 3 years after they wed, Marvin and Johnny welcomed Bill in 1948. And a year later, twin girls, Mickey and Vicky, came along. Although Marvin worked long hours, he'd always find a way to spend meaningful time with his children.
Gunsmoke.
Gunsmoke's still my favorite. I'd crawl up in Dad's lap. I'd crawl up in his chair with him and we'd share a bottle of Coke. No one ever got a whole Coke. You always got a half one if you were lucky. Mom and Mickey and Vicky would share a Coke. Weren't many store-bought gifts, but you get up in the morning, come down, and there's a caterpillar the size of that couch sitting under the Christmas tree. Dad built me a model D7 Caterpillar with a 3-horsepower engine in it I could set in on and drive. Beautiful. We rode it in county fairs and parades and things like that. Dad built my slippery slide. I could go on and on and on. No, you never forget that.
You were the first boy, the firstborn boy, and that still means a lot, but it meant a lot more back then.
Oh, sure. I wasn't even 10 years old, and my dad would talk about manufacturing there on the farm in Nebraska. People asked, did you ever dream? Yeah. I believe that no one ever got farther than their dreams. From age 13, Dad treated me like a partner. He expected you do everything you can do, especially in those days. There wasn't discussion about, is Bill gonna help Dad? That's a given. That's the way you're raised. That's a known. Farm kids always help Dad. So he treated me like a partner.
Tell me more about your mom. What kind of a woman was she?
The best. Mom was a beautician. They didn't wear rubber gloves or anything, you know. But Mom would come home 5, 6 o'clock and her fingers would bleed. Her fingers would bleed. Wouldn't give them permanence. But she went back to work every day. Mom would go to work and come home and take care of company and fix supper, yeah. But you know, things that don't sound reasonable now were just life. It's just the way it was. It's what you did. Mom was a beautiful lady, yeah, beautiful woman.
In 1962, after enduring nearly 4 decades of punishing winters in the northern plains, Marvin Priefert decided to move his family of 5 to the southern tip of Texas, trading his fields of wheat for rows of citrus orchards.
He sold out to his brothers in Nebraska, $60,000, which was a fortune back then, and bought an orange grove in the Rio Grande Valley for $40,000 and had enough money left over to build a house. 10 days after he bought the grove, it froze out. Worst freeze they ever had in the Rio Grande Valley. That's 5 years without income if they won't have fruit before you can plant some more. So Dad was in a very depressed state. Dad grew up in a depression, heard stories from his parents and grandparents about the banks losing their money. So he was very unhappy in that situation.
Feeling somewhat broken and defeated, but not ready to give up, Marvin and his family relocated in Texas, landing right in the heart of cattle country, Mount Pleasant, where he was determined to learn about the needs of the American rancher and how he could improve the industry with his inventions.
He said, you know what, if I ever come up with another product ever again that helps and utilizes and I get my own patents on, I will manufacture it myself.
Next, on the Rural Americans, the stroke of genius that would emblazon the Priefert name in history. How Marvin finally conceived a timeless invention that revolutionized the cattle industry and the early setbacks he faced in mass producing it. The 1960s was the dawn of a golden age in the cattle industry. At a time when American consumers were demanding more beef, milk, and leather, simultaneously, more harmful pests were eradicated and devastating livestock diseases were identified and treated. In Texas, cattle feeding was growing, from small farmer feedlots to large commercial cattle feeding businesses. As nutritionists worked in harmony with veterinarians to produce large herds of healthy cattle, the needs of the industry were changing. And inventor Marvin Priefert was constantly searching for new ways to innovate and improve the advancing sector.
Well, we're at the center of our first farm here in Mount Pleasant. It's 300 acres. This was the house. This was the farm shop, dirt floor. We were going broke again. Working our own cattle in a board corral, and the neighbor bought a steel head gate, and Dad looked at that and said, that's not the way to do that. Don't put that up, I'll build you a good one. He came here to the farm shop, went out back here to his junkyard and pulled out some scrap and built the first truly walk-through head gate. I got off the school bus right out there by that tree. Dad was working out here in the sand. I said, what in the world's that, Dad? He said, that's a head gate. That's what started our company. We were a two-man shop, or a 1.5-man shop, because Dad could go to Talco, buy enough pipe for $25 to build 3 head gates. Bring the pipe home, weld the head gates up, paint them silver, change his clothes, put them in the same pickup, and go out and sell them to local farmers for $38 a piece.
But the idea was, I open it up and I catch the cow, and then as I let her out, I'm cocked and loaded for the next one right off her hip. So I don't have to have a tailgate behind me. And this is what we build today that goes on all the products, but it's basically the same idea, the same concept, everything else, just a little nicer and a little easier to work.
But we're just working cows today. We're gonna let her out.
So that's how it's done.
Pretty much. This is your job right here.
Okay.
Just give her enough daylight so that her head goes through, but her shoulders can't. Yeah, get comfortable.
Because she's coming in, and I want to make it easy on her. Okay, I think I'm ready.
There you go.
The animal, you can tell, doesn't seem frustrated.
No.
If a veterinarian wanted to get in there and work, you'd be able to.
Yeah. If you wanted to palpate, cut that cow off, walk in here, put your hand up in there, palpate, see how many months bred she is. And everything is right here for one man to operate. I can operate this entire chute standing in one spot and I never have to move a foot. We can literally work 120 head of cows and 90 calves before lunchtime and go fishing.
God put us here at Mount Pleasant to do what we're doing because my dad didn't believe in raising cattle. He was a mechanical genius. So when God put us here raising cattle, that was a miracle. 20 years later, I'm looking at where the beef cattle are in America. The article in this magazine said over 50% of the beef calves in America are born in this rectangle. Mount Pleasant, Texas was dead center of that rectangle. Within 400 miles of over 50% of the beef cattle in America are born right here.
From 1964, when Marvin invented his first headgate, to today, Priefert is still family-owned and operated. And the family genius, passed down from generation to generation to generation, has allowed the Prieferts to diversify and progress into one of the largest farm, ranch, and rodeo equipment manufacturers in the world.
Travis is the youngest. Travis is the most intelligent of all of us. Very, very capable of anything he wants to put his mind to. Well, Nate's mechanical. We're all very mechanical, but Nate's chosen to lead. So he's over all production, all trucking, all steel operations, everything machinery related. Ed, well, Ed's the best looking one of us. Ed's the oldest. He's always been the leader. He's wonderful at people skills. You won't find him misleading anybody at all.
We're growing the overall business, and 1/3 of our business today is ranch equipment. 2/3 of our business is selling steel, processed steel, in component pieces and parts, whether that be lasers, tube lasers, tubing out of tube mills, roll forms, or whatever, to other manufacturers. There's so much potential in this nation today that we're growing the business, and the way we're growing that business is today we unload 10 rail cars a day onto the facility. What that equates to is about 800 semis of steel that come into the plant. So you'll see that more in the master coal form, the raw material that we bring in. So roughly 800 truckloads in a month that come in. We need to increase our capacities because of our growth mode. So today we were building a 30-car rail spur to do 30 cars a day. So that gets us up by 2/3.
This is our machine shop. Just about everything that we make, we actually made a machine for. This is a slitter, and we're taking the big coils of steel and we're slitting this one into 3 equal pieces. So you can get it all equal. He just came off with it. So you see the amount of inventory in here, and I can't even tell you how many dollars of inventory it is offhand. Somebody like me, I come in here and I get scared really quick because there's a lot of stuff here.
We've worked very hard, and our people have worked very hard to be a sponsor, to use the gifts that we've gotten here and help with all the rodeos and all the team ropings. And you get to come out here, and it's a crowning achievement.
I'm seeing a lot of blue.
Yes, a lot of blue.
You're gonna see a lot of blue at any venue, any rodeo venue in Vegas.
I don't know how many rope and shoots we've got out there. There's so many different things going, I can't even keep up with all of them. But yes, we got started in Vegas with the World Series. We've got such good partners. You've got the South Point, you've got the National Finals Rodeo, the PRCA. These partners are so fantastic, and they're all about growing the sport of rodeo, team rope, and all the different disciplines. There is no stop to it. It's all going to keep going forward, and as long as the public and our customers out there are continuing to buy property and want to live this lifestyle, there is no end in sight to our market.
For 20 years, this roping shoot has been dominant.
Yes, this rope and shoot has been dominant. And you know, we built the first design in '98 of this shoot. We brought Denny Gentry to the plant. I was building it. Denny Gentry comes in, he saw the shoot, and all I had was the first prototype sitting, and he said, "Can we get one for the US Finals?" And I said, "Yes." But he loved the shoot, loved the efficiency of it all. I think he even said something like, "This is a rocket ship compared to everything that's out there."
Get on and we'll get started.
Well, okay. I just so happen to have a captive audience.
When you leave the box, you want all your hand up here. You don't want any pressure on your horse's reins.
Okay.
So if you start pulling too hard on him, it's going to beep at you and tell you to loosen your hand up. And it will also do the same thing when you get ready to move your hand to dolly. So if you start moving your hand this way when you dolly, he will beep at you and tell you you're moving your hand, and you're going to cause your horse to duck out and cause all kinds of problems, maybe lose a finger.
So, I mean, the best of the best in the rodeo roping world are using this.
This is their practice tool. We're pretty proud of, and we just want people to know about them.
All right, should I give it a shot?
You didn't stand up? So this is perfect for someone just beginning that needs to learn how to swing their rope. This is a great training tool, as long as you're not standing next to them.
I'm gonna tuck it. I'm gonna wrap it. All right, thank you.
You are welcome.
How can I get better at roping?
Lots of practice, lots of good clinics out there, and
speedy.
And a speedy.
To remain at the top of a highly competitive market, the family is able to directly assess the needs of the American farmer and rancher on their working horse and cattle ranch. Outfitted with a variety of Priefert products, and with a massive dealer network spread out across the country and hundreds of loyal longtime employees, the Prieferts acknowledge it's their people who set them apart.
The wonderful thing about our industry is the good people, the good, honest, hard-working, there on time, Christian family people.
Priefert is family.
Priefert is integrity. Integrity in the product, integrity in the people.
Priefert is family.
Priefert is quality. Quality people, quality products.
Priefert is family to me.
We don't have much trouble with collections. A lot of companies have a lot of trouble collecting money. In the farm and ranch industry, we just don't have much trouble. A company, think of the word company, is the people. It's not the buildings, it's not the equipment. A company is the people. With good people, you can accomplish anything. With sorry people, you are in a mess. Confusion all the time. A liar in the mix will confuse everybody.
Being here, having this on the property, having your boys, all three.
And 11 grandchildren, it means the world. It means the world. You can't explain how wonderful it is. Dad and I failed 9 times out of 10.
Put that into perspective, if you will. Talk about how important that persistence is.
You don't quit. You just keep trying. Try something else. You just keep trying. As long as you never mislead anybody, always be honest, tell the truth. Facts are important. People think they can twist the facts, and it won't work. God made things to work. The quicker you get on board with God, the faster you get to where He wants you to be. And God wants the best for His children. And who's more capable of giving his children the best than God? He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. You don't live without God.
You're only as happy as you can be with faith in God and trust in God.
Although the Prieferts are able to work alongside one another productively every day, family's family, and there have been moments when the brothers did not see eye to eye.
So me and Nate were up at the Congress, Ohio, and couldn't find our hotel room. We left a dinner coming back and we couldn't find our hotel room. Well, we were both getting frustrated. Finally said, if you want to drive, you get over here and drive. Well, we pull the truck over, I'll drive. And I just pulled in, we met at the front of the truck. We're rolling around out there on the ground and everything like that, and we got a hold to each other, and I said, we better get out of here, we're gonna go to jail. So we both jumped back in the truck, we found our hotel. So the next day we show back up at Congress, and the guys are, what happened to y'all? It's like, oh, we got in a fight last night. With who? With each other. Oh, no. You don't tell nobody y'all got in a fight with each other. Y'all telling you got in a fight with somebody else. I said, well, we're like, what are you talking about? And he said, brothers don't fight up here, not in this country. It's like, well, we're from Texas and brothers fight in Texas.
After a half-century of success, the future of Priefert manufacturing looks incredibly lustrous. And there's already a plan in place for the next 50 years of production. Although highly advanced technology will be required to propel Priefert into the future, the simple, wholesome values that rest at its core are what will keep it functioning like a well-oiled machine for generations to come.
Our company is unlimited. There is no limit to what can be accomplished. I'd say in a word, it's down to reputation. Good reputation. Integrity is not something you can claim. It's something you are. And it takes years for people to learn that. And you can break it in a second. You can ruin it in a second. It's just years and years.